What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like $100,000.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Some of the founders you've heard of, some you've never heard of. Dov, I love talking about the challenge stories, the stories that through this journey, this up and down journey, have not always been maybe amazing. So I had Noah Alper, who started 100, I think, Noah's Bagels, which then turned into Einstein Bagels. But what's fascinating to me is early on in his start, Dov, what he did is he sold religious tchotchkes out of the back of his trunk. Wasn't as successful as Einstein Bagels, let's put it that way. But that's what he did, and that's how he got started. And there's many more. Even Moise Navone of Mobileye, they got acquired by Intel for $13.2 billion. But he talks about they had a sacrifice along the way. And, there were times he had to take pay cuts, and he had to go back to his family and say, hey, kids, you can't do any extracurriculars. We're pulling you out of all of them. Wife, we can't eat out or, take in anymore. All the niceties are gone. And so that's a reality sometimes, and so check out that, many more stories, InspiredInsider.com. And, today's episode is brought to you by Rise 25, which I co-founded with my business partner, John Corcoran. And, Dov is a huge proponent of this. And anyone, if you have the opportunity to actually enter into his JVMM group, please do it. If, he highly curates the group. I don't know how he let John and I in, but that's another story. But we totally appreciate that. But at Rise 25, we help B2B businesses connect to their Dream 100 clients and referral partners by using a podcast to give to them. Okay, because it's all about relationships in business and in life. How do you give to your best relationships? Put them on your platform. Talk to people about what they're doing, not necessarily what you're doing, but what they're doing. And that's what Dov teaches also. And so if you have been thinking about starting a podcast, do it. I don't care if you use us or you don't, but if you have questions, we've been doing it for over 10 years. You can go to rise25.com. And Dov, I used to not tell anyone this, and then not because of any reason I was trying to keep it secret, but I just didn't realize that was a motivating factor, which was my grandfather, who was a Holocaust survivor. And him and his brother were in concentration camps and were the only people in their family to survive. But the Holocaust Foundation did an interview with him, and that interview lives on my about page of InspiredInsider.com. So I figure yes, like a podcast will help you with your relationships and with your business, but it helps you and your guests leave a legacy, beyond yourself. So check out rise25.com. You can see John and I bantering like an old married couple in one of the videos. But today's guest, I'm super excited to introduce. If you don't know him, he is under the radar. And also big shout out to Joel Irway, which we'll talk about how he helped shape some of the stuff going on. But Dov Gordon is founder of JVMM Group, and you can check out more at profitablерelationships.com. And he helps consultants grow their business by creating their own Alchemy Network. And we'll talk about what he means by Alchemy Network. But, we already talked about how important relationships are. And Dov is a master at this. So you can check that out. Also, you can check out profitablерelationships.com/inspiredinsider, where he has a training on being an under the radar leader. So Dov, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Jeremy Wise. Good to be here.
Dov, when I thought about this, I'm like, I want to do a giver series, people who I consider the biggest givers that I know in my relationship. You're one of those people. And it just so happens I'm doing an Israel entrepreneur series as well. So you kind of qualify for both of those. So talk about what you mean by Alchemy Network.
Well, first of all, it takes one to know one. You and John are extraordinarily generous in connecting people and thinking about always giving. So it takes one to know one.
Thank you.
I've been using the analogy of alchemy for years. It's the way I see it. It's about I think when those who've heard the term usually think about just turning lead into gold, some magic turning lead into gold. But I was thinking about it once, and it occurred to me that the alchemists of old probably were not these just crazy
Magicians or something.
crazy people who imagine if we can just kind of melt this down and mix in this or that, then we could turn lead into gold. I have to think that there was a thought pattern that may have made some sense to them, along the lines of they're probably thinking, if we can get to the underlying structure of this lead, we can probably manipulate it and turn it into something more valuable, into gold. That's my thinking. And today we could see the underlying structure of lead and who knows what else in ways they can only imagine. As far as I know, we still can't actually turn real lead into real gold. But as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as just people, creative people, we have the ability of looking at being in whatever situation we're in, and we can either skid across the surface, which is what most people do most of the time, or we could get to the underlying structure of whatever situation we're in, and we can leverage it and turn it into something more. So an alchemy network is really, it's about, very often you might know lots of individuals, lots of people, but keeping relationships going takes time. Reaching out to people who are potential clients or potential referral sources or whatever it might be, or just people that you could help if they knew that you existed, and if they'd give you the time of day, and that could be mutually beneficial. All that takes time. And then, what if they're not ready to work with you right now? They say, hey, Jeremy, could you get back to me in 6 months? I think we'll be ready then. And because you take the initiative. So after 5 months, you get back to them and they say, oh, Mom, too bad you just got back to me now. I wish you'd called me like, a month ago, because we just started with these other competitors of yours. It's happened to all of us. So we need ways of bringing these disjointed relationships together so that you can really leverage the relationships that you have in a way that's really not possible. I mean, everyone's looking to scale and so on, but a lot actually depends on who you know. And it's very hard to scale relationships. It's a very limited. But if you become the person who brings together a curated group of potential clients of yours, colleagues of yours, recommenders, you bring them together and you curate the group to make sure that it's people who are, the right group for whatever you're doing. And then you lead that group. You facilitate learning and introductions and, just like the real value. And I'm kind of touching on this from a high level for now. 4 people in that group, even when the 2 of them are talking to each other, they know that you were a part of it. It's also a way for you to really keep your finger on the pulse of all the different potential clients that you have in the mix there, or past clients, so that you understand what's going on in their businesses, and you and they think of you when they're actually ready. So you don't get to that situation where, I wish you'd come to us a month ago because we just started with this other firm. So Alchemy Network is about taking, instead of just having relationships and wanting relationships, it's a way of bringing people together that creates more value for everybody.
Yeah, you're always top of mind if that's the case, because they're part of your group. And so talk about the early idea of the JVMM. Take me back.
Early ideas. So I think I've been running this. I've got 2 Alchemy Networks right now. One is the JVMM. That's a group of colleagues of mine, of which you're one. And the other is the Under the Radar Leaders Network, which is much newer. And that's really for consultants and professional service firm owners who are looking to really build their own alchemy networks. I'm helping them learn how to do that. So JVMM, I think it's about 9, maybe 10 years old. And I just formed it because I was looking to reach small business entrepreneurs, consultants, experts, and so on using the internet. I was looking to reach those people through joint venture at the time teleseminars. Webinars were not, I don't know if they're done at all then, but maybe, I think there was what was it, WebEx, and there was and GoToWebinar, right? So, I joined a number of different online forums looking to find the community of people that I felt comfortable with because I wasn't at the time. It was very common to talk about, your email list is your ATM machine. You just kind of send out offers and you hit them hard and money comes in. And I was never comfortable with that because these email addresses represent people, and these people have dreams and they have frustrations, and it never sat well with me. So I was looking for a community of people that I could collaborate with because we had similar values, because we took a long-term perspective in terms of our relationships with each other and with our email subscribers. So I didn't find that group, so I just started my own. And I reached out to a handful of people who I had met online in various different places. I don't even remember all of who they were and where we'd met, although I'm pretty sure at least some of those are still in the group. And I said, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. Would you want to join? And they said yes. And over the following years, we grew that to a pretty serious, significant, big group. I mean, it was at 195, 200 members about a year ago. And I realized that about half were active, half were not. It was time to switch from a free group, which I'd run all those years, to paid. And now there is a modest annual membership. I was really scared of making that move.
Was that a tough decision?
It was a very tough decision. I was very scared. I thought I'd lose everything. I thought I'd lose all those relationships. But the truth is, it's been remarkably good. It's been great. And it was an important step that I needed to take because it helped me understand how to make that transition successfully. We now have 60 plus. I think we're close to 70 members, right? So we went, I was afraid we'd end up with between 10 and 20. We went down to, I think it was 50. And slowly we've been adding some more people.
How did you decide to navigate that conversation, Dov? Because for now it seems obvious because you've had it, but someone who's working with you is like, okay, Dov, I'm going to shift from free to paid. What did that shift look like? How was that? How are those conversations? I was a part of those conversations, I know, but
So, well, I mean, going back, first of all, this is when you have good people around you, you're always going to have some people who see what's possible for you that you're not seeing. Now, you play that role for other people. So I, collected this fantastic group of really first-class people. And there were some people in the group who were seeing what's possible for me that I wasn't even seeing. And because I wasn't seeing it, obviously I had lots of questions, lots of fears, lots of, concerns, because so much of what I'd done was dependent on these relationships. I was afraid of losing them. So, one person in particular, so I was having we were talking every few weeks. I was helping him with some things. He was helping me with some things. And he said, you really need to start charging. As okay, but this and but that and how much and how are people going to react. And I laid out all my worries and fears. There have been other members over the years who also said, you really should start charging because it'll raise the level of people in the group. Now, I can tell you from experience that that's not the case. I'm not saying that when people say, well, if I charge, then people are more committed and more into it. And I can tell you that we had some fantastic participation from first-rate people who were not paying, because what we did was we created a wonderful network, a wonderful community that, they realized that, hey, if I participate, I will benefit. So it absolutely is not always going to be tied to money. Having said that, what an annual membership does do is, first of all, it gives me some compensation for the time I put into leading it, which is totally, I'm really okay with that.
Should be. And
it also makes it clear to people who, it makes it clear to everybody who wants to be there. Because if we had about 200 people and about half of them were not really active, that's not necessarily healthy either. So even though the other half were active and it was very, very valuable, still it was I realized there was time for that next step. So I laid out some of my fears. I was worried about don't remember exactly what they all were, but they all seemed very real. And it was exactly like what you said. I concluded after discussing, so I discussed them with that person, and I reached out to a number of other people who I know who've been very supportive over the years. And, and most of them said, like, yeah, I don't know why you didn't start charging years ago.
So is that what you
sure.
did to navigate as you reached out to get feedback from people in the group?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to know that I would have at least a core group that I could rebuild from. Right. So, and there was one member who was saying you definitely should, like, he was in the Joe Polish's 25K group, and he's like, this is just as good, it's like in many ways. Great conversations, great people. It's like, and he's like, what's your PayPal? And then, like, he PayPal and sent over some money, like, on the spot, which I'll always appreciate, because that definitely said something. And I ended up charging more than what he sent over, because he sent over what I was thinking about at the time, but I made the decision a few weeks later, and the good sport that he is, he paid up the difference. So,
yeah. How do you decide on what to charge?
Well,
because I can see that balance, right? And we'll get more into running and leading a group, but you don't want.
How do I start? I figured that it's less than most serious people are paying for, even certain software add-ons over the course of a year, but it's enough to make a difference. And it's enough that they have to make a decision, but not that much. It's just something like that they would think about, like, yeah, it's going to be worth, at least 10 to 100 times that over the course of the year. And the answer for anybody serious is, yeah, of course. And at the same time, it gives me that extra little push to make sure that things are running smoothly, which I've always done I think, a good job of anyway. But still, it's like, it's something that I was able to recognize that, okay. And making that transition really also helped me realize that this is something that I can help other people do. Because there are so many, everybody would like to just kind of give our credit cards over to Facebook, run some ads, and then have an overflowing business. But most people who are experts, consultants, professional service firm owners, even business owners, most people who've tried that did not make it work for them, or did not make it work in the long run. Even if it worked for a period of time. One of our members was putting in, I forgot how much every month, but he was running a $2.5 $3 million a year business. And then about a year and a half ago, the Facebook algorithm changed and everything went off a cliff like that. He spent the next 9 months and $600,000 going through 3 different agencies trying to bring it back. Nothing. He had to completely reinvent himself, which is remarkable. He's still doing well, but it's not what he was doing. So, there is nothing like relationships, especially when it comes to high value consulting, high value coaching. People, for the most part, will find you through relationships. Are there exceptions? Yeah. I came to realize a number of years ago that there are 2 paths to thriving as an independent consultant or an expert. One I think of as the path of the charismatic guru, and the other one is the path of mastery. And they're both legitimate paths. There's nothing wrong with being the charismatic guru type if you're just treating people ethically. And, presumably most of them do. But the problem is that most of us do not belong on that path. We wake up in the morning, we say, hey, I'm really good at X. I'm world class at X. I can help businesses and people with X, and it's really valuable. How do I get clients? I thought it would be a lot easier than it's turning out to be. And, you look around and all the charismatic gurus are the ones that we see. And they're saying, well, you've got to be doing Facebook ads. You've got to be on Instagram. You got to be on Twitter. Or whatever. And once upon a time, the answer was you got to be blogging. Remember that? Remember blogging? So it wasn't that long ago. You got to be podcasting, right? Which is a fantastic medium, but and you help people understand the right and wrong kind of ways to go about it for most people. There are some who the charismatic guru type, they're going to blow up in big with a big audience, but it's not the right strategy for most people, which is what you teach. So most people end up they're kind of walking down the path of the charismatic guru, following that guru, trying to follow their advice. What they don't realize is that the one thing that guru is relying on, to a degree that they may or may not even be conscious of, that they cannot transfer to you, is that their set of values and personality. And if you're not the kind of person who is interested in putting yourself up on a pedestal as a celebrity, if you're not the kind of person who is really interested in, kind of becoming that type of, it's just not, it's not who you are, right? Most people, I think, would like to be hired by their ideal clients because for who they are, not for who they're pretending to be. And if that's not who you are, then it's not going to work for you. And it's going to, and people go months, if not years, kind of struggling against that, because when you don't know what yes to do and people say, do this, you're going to try this and you're going to try that. And when it doesn't work and you're not sure, like, why does it work for them and not for me? You think there's something wrong with you. But the answer is no. I mean, you just got to get off the path of the charismatic guru and get back on the path of mastery where you belong. So creating, and there's another thing is that most people, and I'm talking about, let's say independent consultants. Obviously, if someone's leading a larger company, a larger consulting firm, then, the numbers will go up. But most independent consultants are not looking for, multi-7-figure and scaling. It's just not what most people want. Nothing wrong if you do want that, but it's just not what most people want. Most people are looking for a good mid-6-figure, maybe upper 6-figure income with some time freedom. Time to enjoy it, time to be with their families, time to travel, time to, the ability of spending, of spending some of that money without having to think about it. That's what most people really want. And what they want is they want to get there by having the opportunity of doing great work with great clients who appreciate them for who you are. So how do you create that consistent flow of clients if that's who you are, right? It's not by following somebody who's got such a very different set of dreams and aspirations and values and personalities. And again, I'm not judging. I'm not saying that one is right, the other one is wrong. I'm not. I'm simply saying that you've got to take the path that's the right fit for you.
So when you say under the radar, okay, so you could be an under the radar and lead this alchemy group. Is that what you're referring to? The path of mastery?
Yeah, I say that you can become an under the radar leader in your industry and have all the clients that you want. And you do that by developing your own Alchemy Network, which we talk about at profitablelationships.com. Right. So, and the idea is like, look, if you can develop relationships, if you can get to know 15, 30, 50, 100 people in your industry, like, get to know them to the point where they recognize that you're at least somebody who's worth talking to once in a while. They may not know you all as good friends, right? Some people, they'll know you different degrees. But if you get to the point where they're willing to open your email and reply, take your phone call, your text message and respond, and the next level is where they reach out to you to ask you certain questions. It doesn't matter that nobody else knows who you are. It doesn't matter that you're not famous, that you're not a best-selling author, or because these are people now who know that when they need X, you're the one to call. They're going to call you. They understand the problems you help solve, the results that you enable, and they understand who to introduce you to, because that's part of, obviously you have to, there's a, I've developed and teach a strategic or, a systematic way of going about all these different stages. But the key idea is that if you have these relationships and your aim is, a good mid to upper 6-figure income, you don't need that much more. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what do you mean by stages?
Well, there's identifying, the way I say that I like doing this is to bring people into your network. So for example, I have a client who, he had a remarkable 2 or 3 days, a number of months back, where he was reaching out to executives at nice sized companies through LinkedIn, cold. A lot of people do that. You identify a potential client, someone who fits a profile. You reach out to them, send a connection request, and maybe start a conversation. So it was 2 or 3 days, he had 5 executives at $500 million plus and $1 billion plus companies book themselves onto his calendar, right? Because he'd reached out to them through LinkedIn using messaging that we developed together. They responded, had a little bit of back and forth, and then booked themselves on his calendar. Why? Because he wasn't taking the typical approach that most people take. He was inviting them to his Alchemy Network. When you lead an Alchemy Network, you're creating a currency out of nothing, right? Because there are different options. Like you could be making another $50,000 to $200,000 a year for the kind of relationship marketing that you're probably already doing and not getting paid for. I mean, that's a lesson I learned last year, right? All that, and I've just built on that. I mean, that's fine. In some cases, it might make sense to start off free. I'm kind of going a little on a tangent, but even if you're going to, even when you're charging a membership for your Alchemy Network, you're still in a position where you're essentially giving something that's very valuable to these people for a modest fee. So they reached out, they responded, and 4 out of 5 ended up joining his Alchemy Network. The 5th one he felt was not a good fit. So now he's building relationships with these people, and a new client for him is worth almost $200,000 on the low end. He just closed a deal about 6-8 weeks ago. I think he's almost finished it for $175,000, and it's a 90-day project, right? So he's not even aiming for more than a few of those a year. His capacity, he'd be at capacity, right? So that's another thing, is he needs to decide if he even wants to increase his capacity, right? But most people that most consultants, experts, they'd be very happy with that type of thing. This is part-time, 90 days, right? And it turned out that he's doing more of it from home than he planned to because of the coronavirus issues. And in a sense, that was a blessing for him, because he came to realize that he could do a lot of things remotely that he hadn't realized were even possible. So now he's got this growing Alchemy Network, and that's so. There's you asked me about the stages. There's identifying potential members. There's reaching out and connecting with them, like beginning that conversation. There's interviewing them, so to speak, and then there's enrolling and onboarding them into your group. And all of these require some thought and system and so on, so that you're not constantly reinventing the wheel, and so that you've got your messaging and your targets kind of well defined. So and then of course there's leading the group, and then then there's kind of identifying where people are and looking for opportunities. If it's a group of 30, 50, 100, 150 potential clients, these are, like you talked about, the Ched Holmes concept of Dream 100. I think of this as very much like, a more modern evolution of a Dream 100 approach, where you're not just kind of reaching out to everybody individually. You're really building a community. And by the way, when you have one happy client in that group, they're going to talk to others that you've introduced them to, tell them some stories, and that's going to just grease the wheels for that next big project, the next big client.
Dov, there's a lot of things to unpack for a second there with, starting, running, and leading a group, and talk about the curation process a little bit, because you're really good at curating, which is a huge value to everyone in the group.
So I think you need to be clear as to what you're looking for and what you're not looking for. And you also need the discipline to not accept the wrong person, but it's really not that different than you need discipline if you're running a restaurant to not use cheap ingredients, that to not cut corners. When you're forming an Alchemy Network, you're creating a product in a sense, right? And you need to be clear as to who is it that you're looking for and why. Before you even start, why are you building an Alchemy Network? Why? What's it going to do for your business? You've got to know how it's going to work backwards and serve you. I've had some people in the Under the Radar Leaders Network share how I'm going to start this. I remember a conversation recently. I'm starting this network for those people. My question was, well, how is that going to drive your business forward? Well, not the answer was it sounded like essentially was a nice thing to do. It's a community I have access to, good people, but there was that gap there. And my suggestion is go back to the design phase. You got to figure out what what are you doing, so that's going to drive your business. And then what are the values that you're looking for? So when I was debating with myself about whether I'm going to charge, one of the things that I said was like, look, there's so much generosity in the group. If I need to reach out to you or John or anybody really, and just, ask you a question, I've got that access, which is valuable to me. And in a sense, is probably more valuable than the membership that I'm charging. Right. So I was afraid, like, would people no longer be willing to get on a call with me for half an hour to talk something through, if they're also paying an annual membership fee? And this member who was really encouraging me to do that, he said, Dov, the group, everybody is, the generosity is because of the leadership, because of the model that you sell, that you set. It's not going to change just because people are paying this modest annual membership. And that was such an eye opener for me. I was like, huh. And he's absolutely right. That's been absolutely been the case, and that's really a big value for other people in the group. Like when you're bringing together the right people and you're encouraging them to get to know each other, you're looking for them to have one-on-one and other conversations and meetups. One of the things I enjoy the most is getting pictures from people who are both at some event somewhere in the Midwest or in California or wherever that I couldn't be at, but it's great to see 5 or 6 or a dozen JVMM members getting together and having and I love seeing that. There's being able to collaborate and to pick the brains of other people, because there's that professional courtesy that you get just by being in there. And that's something that other people would pay through the nose for.
So what is your process for curation? What do you look for someone for the JVMM?
I'm looking for people who are, well, specifically for JVMM, I'm looking for people who are number one, marketing and selling to small business, entrepreneur, consulting, expert, that market. We do have some people who also sell to SME and corporate. So we do have some of that. But first of all, they have to be selling to the right market, and the reason for that, obviously, because a core idea is that people in the group are open to promoting each other, right? In one way or the other. So that's the first thing I'm looking for. Now, a number of years ago, someone came to me and he wanted to nominate someone he knew as a member of JVMM as somebody who's focused on the dating and relationship space and had over 1 million email subscribers. And I said, that sounds really amazing, but what would we be able to offer him? Like, he's just like, nobody in the group is going to promote him, or almost nobody. Like, what would he, and even if they did, it would be, we had some people with like a low 6-figure list, but that was the higher end. Right. So I said, no, because I feel like everybody in the group needs to be able to both contribute and receive. And if I can't see how somebody could both give and gain, as they say, I think in BNI, right? You've got to be able to contribute and receive. That has to be. I'm not looking for any heroes. I'm not looking for any celebrities in the group. Like, no one is in the group because they're a celebrity, although we have some celebrities in the group. Everyone is in there because of their mastery. So I'm looking for, number one, the market they're going to. Number two, the fact that adding something, that they are open to cross promotion of one kind or another for others in the group. And number three, because of who they can both contribute and benefit. Because I came to realize, a number of years ago, somebody emailed the group to our group email and said, hey, everyone, this other member is doing this paid workshop over the weekend. Check it out. And I got a couple of grumbling emails saying, what was that all about? Not because we're afraid of promotion. Like, we're all market and sell things. None of us are afraid of someone telling us, hey, this is going on and you can pay for it. That's fine. No one, we all pay for stuff. But it's because she hadn't participated in at least a year, maybe longer. So there was that, that was it, the emotional bank account that Stephen Covey talks about. It was like, why is she just suddenly popping up and sending us a promotional thing? So I emailed her behind the scenes and I said, hey, I got some flack for your email. She's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. I should participate more. And I'll make an effort to participate more. And I responded, I said, look, I'm not interested in giving you another chore. Like, that's not at all. Like, I don't want you to feel like you have to participate. I only want people to participate when they want to participate, because the value of the group is a direct result of people who recognize that when I participate for my own selfish reasons, everybody gains. When people feel like they have to participate, it doesn't, it doesn't work. So, and then I'm looking for people who are happy to share. They're out. You have to be doers, out there doing, not just thinking about it, not just talking about it. And their business has to be at a stage where I can actually see, like, I'm interested in what I think of as high quality. That they could be somewhat beginner, not too beginner, intermediate, advanced, and and a willingness to go out and implement all the time, and then come back and share with the rest of us what's working and what's not working. What did you do that you're proud of, and what did you do that you kind of wouldn't like to experience again? So these are the things that I'm looking for.
So, I want to talk about profitablерelationships.com and a little bit of the evolution of that. And you mentioned, when we were chatting before hitting record, about Joel Irway influenced it. So talk about what we see now and what that influence was.
Well, Joel Irway, who is focuses on, what was his webinar? What's his website? JoelIrway.com, I think.
Look him up, but he's expert at webinars.
Yeah.
And so mini webinars, I think.
Right. He's in our group. And I recently took a second look at some of what he's been doing, what he's been teaching, and I was very impressed. He's got a really good, solid model. And I've just, I used that as a framework for the video that I put up on Profitable. It's a short presentation. It's 13 and a half minutes, I think it is. And it really just lays out the framework of how to, how you could be earning anywhere from $50 to $100, $150, $200,000 a year from a lot of the relationship marketing that you're already doing, and you're doing it for free. And I just used his framework for that because it's just a very good, simple, clean framework. And Joel is a really good guy.
What's one of the things in the framework that sticks out to you?
Well, he talks about he has a really good idea for just a very simple framework. What does he call it? His super offer, power offer, his power offer, right? Which he, talks about a lot, which it basically is, if I could help you X, right? Would you take me up on it? Right. I mean, so what I have here is, if I offer to help you turn your relationship marketing from a time sink into a brand new $50,000 to $200,000 a year revenue stream, that means you're getting paid for things that you're already doing. Would you take me up on the offer? Right. Mm-hmm. So, I wrote that. I don't know if Joel would consider that an effective application of his principle. So I can't, I don't want to imply his endorsement on that, but that's, that's definitely something that stands out. And it gives frame and focus. And it's really, for me, it's really just helped add another little chink in my own slow rebranding, moving everything over to profitablerelationships.com, because it's been quite several years probably that I've been thinking to myself, even before I was charging for the JVM, like, this is a valuable thing, but is this something that, but I didn't appreciate what I was doing. I thought, like, anybody could do this. This is not hard. But then I started to realize that I don't know anybody who is doing it. I'm not talking about a Facebook group. I'm not talking about a LinkedIn group. I'm not talking about a Slack group. I'm not talking about, BNI style networking. I'm not talking about any of that. And it's the nuances that make the difference. So, I realized that this is something that other people could be using. They build their own Alchemy Network, something I've been doing for 10 years plus in various forms. And now we've got, I've got just yesterday I heard from a client in the Netherlands, and he's his Alchemy Network. He just kicked it off. He's got started with I think it's about almost 10 people. It's somewhere between 8 and 10, and he's focused on senior leaders of SaaS companies, software as a service companies. He's got I think he said most of the companies in there are funded, like they've received investment funding, and they had a great first call. He was telling us in the Under the Radar Leaders Network about it, and I've got another member there, a woman who she saw an opportunity to really kind of piggyback on an existing community and take the principles of the Alchemy Network, and she kind of ended up with an Alchemy Network overnight that includes about 100 people, several of whom have already sent her business. So that's a colleague-based Alchemy Network. And that brings in the question of, she doesn't necessarily own that network, but sometimes it doesn't matter if you own it or not, right? Sometimes, there's benefit to just going into something that someone else is running and you realize an opportunity, and she's bringing the same principles. She's already gotten, I don't know, like probably several mid to upper 5-figure referrals from people in that group. So it sure made sense for her to jump in and create a network for them using what she learned from me. So it's, it's just, she's going to get more. So those are the kinds of things that I'm helping people do. And I love that, because these are not the charismatic guru types. These are people who are masters at their craft. They love what they do. They're really good at what they do. And all they want is to be doing great work with great clients and making a great income and have some time to enjoy themselves and to enjoy their income and to spend time with their family. So,
Dov, thank you. First of all, I have one last question, but everyone should check out profitablерelationships.com, see what you're doing. There is a great video there. You have some great videos actually on YouTube that I binge watch over the past couple of days. I encourage people to check out. What's the first action people should start to take to create their own Alchemy Network? What should they start with?
Let's see. I actually, you also mentioned the profitablерelationships.com/inspired insider. And there we have a different little kind of mini training there that lays out the steps that you can follow and start to do right away. But the first two decisions that you need to make are, number one, who is my ideal member? And number two, what's the big idea? Because you've got to have clarity about who is the ideal member and what is the big idea that is going to make this person want to participate. And these are simple questions. They're not always so easy to answer, but those are absolutely the foundational questions that you need the first steps.
So what are the best way to people to get a hold of you?
Dov Gordon at dovgordon.net, or profitablерelationships.com. There's definitely some way here to reach out to me. But Facebook, LinkedIn, I'm pretty much everywhere with Dov Gordon.
Everyone check out profitablerelationships.com. If you're wondering who's pulling the strings behind the scenes of some of these groups, oftentimes that path leads back to Dov, whether you realize it or not. So Dov, thanks for what you do. Everyone check it out. Thanks again.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like $100 grand.